Connecticut school district for racism and won $37,000. And she went on to become a prominent right-wing figure, fairly controversial even in the right-wing space. But she's been having like this wonderful rebrand where she's kind of like this pop culture lifestyle sort of person. And you know what? Men are appreciating her so much more, especially after she started talking about Harvey Weinstein and taking his side, because she's gotten away from politics and has made this shift, including doing things like hating diversity and Skims ads, called Me Too a witch hunt on men, and she's got a fitness app specifically targeting new mothers. Gotta snap back into that body to make sure that he still values you, right? And the thing is that a lot of people on the left really got on the Candace Owen train when she started talking about Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. And all of this culminates in her holding up a sign of "Make him a sandwich." So inspirational. I know Khadijah mentioned in a video that they were going to be doing a deep dive into Candace Owens, so I'm going to leave them space to do that, but that we will be coming back to Candace in this video. There has been this growing shift over the past few years that conservative women are not just the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world.
LGBTQ plus community, we stand with you, and you can raise the fire.
They're not just Karens who are shrill and yell for the manager and feel all entitled and take up space. I mean, no one wants to be like them. Oh no, a rebrand has been happening. A glamorous one, the ones involved in pop culture and lifestyle. All of these women are looking pretty, whether you're a trad wife or a crunchy mum, a fitness lover, a pop culture fiend, a former lefty, a party girl, or you just want to be a normal girl. Trust me, there's a conservative clique just for you. Without realizing what's happening, you could be on one of these pipelines to become one of these cute conservatives too. And yes, there is a real term that people associate with, coined by Alex Clark, who, yes, we sadly will be coming back to soon. But you know, you're cute conservatives because being pretty, as Betty Draper taught us, is the most important thing for a woman to be. And we all know what a good mother she was. And it's important to note just how much more sneaky these are than the manosphere, even though they kind of work in parallel. And sometimes they can overlap, they can lead you down another pipeline, they can just push you down there further. And then before you know it, you become the perfect Evie magazine reader. A white, thin, fertile woman who lives to serve her man and really wants to get back to God's country, even if she's not religious. All the time knowing that the patriarch of the house is the one you ultimately will be obeying. Sorry, just following the orders of. Just respecting. And not only will you be doing that, but you'll be spreading the gospel to other women as well. Actually, speaking of Evie magazine, let's start there, shall we? Conservatives will never win if they imagine themselves as combatants atop defensive battlements, hurling abuse at the mass media. We need to involve ourselves in the creation of pop culture. That's from Bryony Martinez, creator of Evie magazine, which I think that you will recall this video, which I did on that. Ow. One of the most important things to note about all of the women that you see in this space is they are so often called brave for going against the grain, because they've been brave enough to break the mold of what the nasty feminists like me are asking of them. But you know what, Bethany Ann, you made the right decision by coming on over to the right, coming on over to the good side. They've turned their back on the higher education they pursued, and they're being celebrated for not only wanting to maintain the status quo, but actually backpedal. Like, we actually don't want all of these rights that we have. It's almost like a lot of people have been swept up into dancing through life without realizing that that's actually a negative song. It's a commentary on how dangerous willful ignorance and apathy towards others is. But those feelings are very important as they form the backbone of this movement. Let's explore all of these avenues whilst I bake a lemon meringue pie. The recipe is not mine, but it's linked for you down below. Nothing is sponsored here. I just felt that this was the right thing to do since we're tackling this sort of subject matter. Just felt that this was the right thing to do since we're tackling this sort of subject matter. I get scared, I feel ignored, I feel happy, I get silly. The Amanda Show, that's what that's from. Make America healthy again. I have indeed covered the crunchy to alt-right pipeline, and you will definitely see a lot of overlaps with that area. The people who are most vulnerable to this pipeline and wannabe mothers, new mothers and people who are already mothers. And honestly, it makes perfect sense why you would want to make sure that your kid had the healthiest food, had the best things in the world. Like, we always, hopefully, want each generation after us to have a better life than we had, right? And it's no secret that women are kind of like the backbone of the regular everyday economy in the way that we do the grocery shopping, we do the meal planning, and we know what is going into our families' mouths. You know, like, that's how we are meant to care for people, care for those around us. So this is especially targeted at women because it taps into the nurturing which we've been trained in since our infancy. Someone's worth as a person being directly tied to their, quote, health is not a new message. It's baked so well into fascism as well. You see this through fascistic messaging, and you see it on the right, like Joe Rogan was one of the people that were peddling this. When it comes to women, you've got people like Glow Mama, and also, let's just go back to Alex Clark, shall we? Now look, I am a giant Erin Brockovich fan, Toxic Town, Dark Waters, you name it. I am huge when it comes to social justice and collective action. It's the people who live in the poorer areas who are most affected by companies because they've got less political sway and less power. So companies get away with dumping waste there because nobody cares about them. Not in a world that still believes in meritocracy, judgment goes to the poor rather than the real culprit, the corporations. And governments, most of the time, don't care. It takes a lot of effort to get them to care. So there is an element of truth to women being concerned about the people that they love, and especially their children, their vulnerable children, not being protected. We know that even in a rich country like the USA, not everyone has access to clean drinking water from their tap, like in Flint, Michigan. Companies have done a lot to be negligent or corrupt governments or threaten and silence people in order to allow them to keep their profits high. And so there's a very valid and real concerns which do need to be addressed. But instead of like that collective good being focused on, you know, food dyes are being targeted, food deserts aren't being addressed, which affect the poorest and most vulnerable people. And it comes down to individuals being encouraged to eat organic, grow their own food, because it's your responsibility as a woman to protect yourself and your family. And women have been used in this space, especially when it comes to vaccinations. The United States is currently facing its largest single outbreak of measles in 25 years, with the number of cases crossing the 1,000 mark last week, according to this Reuters article which came out just the day before I filmed it. The measles, mumps and rubella vaccine prevents 97% of cases after 2 doses, and high adoption of the MMR vaccine resulted in the disease being declared eradicated in the US in 2000. 1 in 4 Republicans disagreed with the statement that parents have a duty to vaccinate their children. And because of this disinformation, which RFK Jr. and women sadly are sharing, 2 children and 1 adult have lost their lives in the US because of measles, and others are being needlessly infected because of this, quote, fear of autism, which RFK Jr. keeps on peddling as being a link between vaccines and autism, even though there's no scientific link between autism and vaccinations. But if you don't really vibe with RFK Jr., you can just listen to Alex Clark, the cute-servative originator, who testified at the Senate hearing on chronic disease. All of this nonsense.
In 1980, autism was diagnosed at a rate of just 3 or 4 per 100,000 kids. Today, a newborn child has a 1 in 36 chance that he or she will be autistic. And that rate is also rising every year. Who cares about politics if the next generation is dead or close to it before they can even vote?
Why have rates risen so much since the 80s? Possibly because diagnosis has gotten that much better, and also because it's been recognised more in women and girls. So for once we're actually being taken seriously, and yet this is being used as a negative thing because of the ableism which is inherent in the Maha movement. What Alex Clark and people like her are doing is using these moments which look like Erin Brockovich moments, you know, one woman standing up against the big baddies, but what Erin Brockovich and people like her actually did was a whole lot of collective action and work. It wasn't just her doing this. And they were doing it actually for the people, based on science, not based on misinformation and fear-mongering.
Nothing tastes better than being hot and healthy. I can't say the other word because of obvious reasons, but nothing feels better than being hot and healthy.
And now that Thinner's in, even though I got age restricted for talking about it in this video and how dangerous it really is, mean girls are everywhere online saying that this is the most important thing. Make America Hot Again appeals a lot to young women. This pipeline's pull is dangerously strong on young women, but also all women. And don't forget about new mothers, just like Candace Owens has a fitness app for, just so you can snap back fast enough. I think that we should look at the youth, and there is one person in particular I really want to look at. Raquel Dobino. Dobby? Bono, the founder of Make America Hot Again. Now, you may recognize her as she featured on the cover of New York magazine, which she is absolutely elated by. She posted this on Instagram with a caption, "Make lib hell great again." And this post, "Cultural domination," to show exactly what she's going for with the right. Raquel absolutely relishes in the cruelty. The point is to show how normal conservative girls are. And not all conservative women are trad wives. She identifies as a city conservative. You can be a normal person who likes to party and go out and vote conservative. No more restrictions. Be ableist, racist, and homophobic as much as you want. And we can body shame everybody now. The article says, when trying to explain why she likes to tell fat jokes, they told me, "I'm normal, okay? Probably the most normal person here. Even her lib friends," she says, "enjoy a not so PC joke every now and then, but only behind closed doors. I want to be skinny. You said the same thing last night," followed by the DEI bullshit. Who cares? Well, the one who should.
How do you build a bridge to reach your healthy goals? Start with one step. Throw one.
Well, the one who should care is you, Raquel, since DEI predominantly helps white women. But hey, that doesn't matter. Vote your rights away. You're the fun party. You know what you're doing. And I'm sorry, but if you're not going to be as witty as Heather's, like, we need better than this.
Cut me gently with the chainsaw. Do I look like Mother Teresa?
Looking through her socials is like looking at a caricature of a 1980s popular girl. No ugly person in sight. America is hot again. This is the cool wave of young kids who are changing politics now. Now look, Khadijah has done this excellent video diving into this exact issue, so I'll link that down below for you. But I want it all mentality and living off the hatred. Like I pointed out earlier, remember how brave they are, and the more hate that they get, it just shows that they are being a trailblazer. It's just what happens if it's in the opposite direction. What does that mean? Does that make you a skid mark? They're just brave enough to say the horrible things that everyone is thinking. But is everyone really thinking this? Or are you just Cruella? And a poor imitation of one, actually. Interestingly though, she is actually against trad wives and thrives off, pissing them off, really. She leans more into the materialism side of life. Think Sex and the City wannabe. Emphasis on wannabe. Breaking news, you can have a job, a martini, and still be conservative. Sorry at trad wives. With the caption, "Have fun in the farm, ladies." The loudest voices pushing the trad wife thing probably just can't afford nannies. Funny how it's always the guys with no job, no plan, and no personality demanding a trad wife. Like, sir, you don't need a submissive wife, you need a LinkedIn account. And you know what? I agree with you on that, Raquel, and I'm going to be coming back to this in my next video because I have thoughts. This part of the movement is very much trying to make conservatives cool and normal again. We're not these weirdos over here. We're not yelling stuff. We're just cool, mean people from the 1980s. But it's also really obvious how much they don't really care about each other except for in a clout kind of way, and it makes me think of this Homestar Runner sketch.
Hey, now let's start looking good. I look so good.
Him, what are your politics? Me, pro-gun, pro-keeping my money for Chanel, pro-martini, pro-choice, and for the gays. And then you look at the comment section here. Kamala supported these policies, Trump didn't. Hi, we don't want you. Keep your dumb red hat. Being a self-interested libertarian isn't the politically evolved and interesting stance you think it is. Lots of these leftist people commenting and rightfully pointing out the absolute hypocrisy with saying that they're for that whilst also voting for Trump, who's absolutely against most of those things except for the pew pew. And then I love my moderate girlies is another comment, and that one's actually liked. Less than the takedown ones, but 99 times it's pretty significant. Raquel and others like her stress how normal they are, and it's all part of the rebrand. To have this movement work, you need to have hot conservative women. Like, do you remember that dating app that the right launched for only right-wing people? Oh, the right stuff. And then it failed super quickly because no women wanted to join it. This is why people like Raquel are needed. Plenty of men have conservative wishes. Not that they'll tell you, they'll just say that they're not really interested in politics or just apolitical. It's like, I don't really think about it, but politics affects everybody. You're just unveiling your privilege and apathy here, bro, and it's not really a turn on for women. But getting women into the fray is harder if you're trying to sell them on the same stuff as the manosphere packaged in the exact same way. way, trying to sell them on slut-shaming, farm-only lifestyles where your only purpose is to breed and raise children and look after your man forever and you're not allowed to have any other aspirations. People like Raquel needed to exist to bring more women across. But you know how Gen Z are loving watching Sex and the City and they feel like they missed out on a whole bunch of stuff because of like lockdowns with the pandemic when it was being taken seriously? For the girlies that want this sort of lifestyle, it is a very powerful pipeline. The soft feminine, soft life, classy life sort of pipeline is the sneakiest one in my opinion, because you can come across these absolutely beautiful videos on TikTok where it's people just creating sweet moments throughout the day, taking time to appreciate the feeling of sun on your skin, nature, a nice cup of tea, you know, actually appreciating your life and slowing down, basically not enjoying the capitalistic hellscape that we all live in. And I think that we can all agree that that's a nice escape. And if you see me ever, I think that you can quite clearly tell I fall into this very heavily. I even have a Studio Ghibli poster right behind me. But when you actually search this on TikTok, you come across not only these wonderful enjoy the small things in life, like make sure that you're taking time to appreciate the slowness and not feel like you're always having to hustle. You find the stuff which is very misogynistic, which is telling women how to lean into their feminine energy to get a man, how to present yourself and be modest and classy, and how you can importantly get this lifestyle by being with a strong man that takes care of you and not feeling like you need to hustle so hard because you can just rely on him. And this sneaky messaging. And this is where Evie magazine thrives, okay? Because when you look at their TikTok page in general, it looks like a regular kind of Cosmo magazine sort of thing, but then it's interspersed with all of this really hateful messaging and very scary right-wing tactics. But don't go thinking that everybody that falls into the sort of soft life, soft feminine, classy sort of look.
You should switch to 1-800-CONTACTS because
it's super easy.
So cheap.
I save shipping costs. I saved doctor office visit fees.
It was cheaper on 1-800-CONTACTS than actually going to the eye doctor.
But don't go thinking that everybody that falls into the sort of soft life, soft feminine, classy sort of look or lifestyle is right wing, because even people like Jackie Aina has had to come out and say, I'm a Democrat. She's not Republican. But you can see how sneaky this is, right? Because anyone that's been burnt out, which I think a lot of us have, anyone that wants to take life a little bit slower, this is such an easy pipeline to fall down. And it's so beautiful and calm and peaceful, you don't even recognize it happening.
Controversy right now with like being on the Time 100 list.
It's a ridiculous joke. She shouldn't be there. She has no influence over anyone.
The want to take women down a peg. A woman is pretty, there must be something she's hiding. A woman's famous or in a position of power, she must have slept her way to the top. A woman's work is celebrated and enjoyed by heaps of people. No, she's a bad influence. This is where people like Candace Owens, Brett Cooper, Alex Clark, and many more absolutely thrive. Now, I've been torturing myself, and probably my neighbors too, because I've been yelling at the phone screen whilst listening to it, of her covering the Harvey Weinstein case. She sets up her main argument and sets the scene for everybody to seed this in people's minds before she even starts with any of the facts. With a nice old misogynistic personal story time. You know, remember those days of YouTube? Simpler times.
I was kind of just wanting to get myself out of student loan debt, willing to take any and every job. And she was just sort of this free spirit. She described herself as a free spirit, and she came from another country, and it was all about attending the right parties, meeting the right directors. She was just so much cooler than me.
There was someone that she went to school with who was prettier than her, and she was jealous of her. She wanted to be an actress, and then she did some work and stuff. But Candace always felt lesser than her.
More confident than me, and she was gorgeous. She was prettier than me. And for a while, it seemed to be working for her. She, you know, men fell at her feet. She got these small acting gigs that she wanted.
And then Me Too happened, and this girl got really involved in it, was saying that this stuff shouldn't be happening anymore.
Sensed in her a bitterness at the different decisions that I had made in my life. Her investment in the Me Too movement was actually her trying to reconcile decisions that she had made in her past, decisions that she had made with producers and people that she thought that, well, if she slept with, they might lead to her getting her big break.
And as Candace explains, this was the perfect opportunity for people with no talent at all to be able to finally get their 15 minutes of fame. Because remember, according to Candace, the Me Too movement was a witch hunt against men, not women coming forward about SA and SH that they experienced and how systemic it was and how nothing was done about it. No, it's just that you're a talentless actually. And then for everything else, she is just disregarding any of these women that came forward because, oh my goodness, half his balls are in his leg. And just, oh my goodness, it's a lot. And of course Joe Rogan is supporting this. Of course, like, guys love it because Candace Owens was saying that these women that came forward with accusations, they were proven wrong, and see how wrong they are. See these accusations ruin a man's life. And as we've talked on this channel a lot, the accusation is always worse than whatever trauma the person goes through. But it plays into the internalized misogyny that we all have, because we all know girls that were prettier than us at school or work or wherever and just felt like they had such an easy life and they weren't all that special to begin with. You know, like, women, as I talked about for many years, we've been pitted against each other, and so automatically having this judgment against them is just something that is absolutely baked in. You have to learn to like each other. We just love to see a woman fall and partake in the takedown of her because she's done something wrong, so she absolutely needs to be shamed. And Shanspare has just dropped this amazing video, which I'm going to link for you down below, which dives into this stuff more. This isn't the helpful kind of gossip. This is the nasty sort of rumors spreading kind of gossip that we're on about here that people are doing. We're saying it's about accountability, but we're not even being accountable ourselves with the media that we're consuming because it's mostly just misogyny slop, which is a term coined by Ofi Doki. As is discussed in this video by Taylor Lorenz, which I will have linked for you down below as well, we've been taught that we're serving justice by taking people down, but ultimately you're actually just playing into the role of Janice, who is also a mean girl herself. Sometimes I think that people didn't quite get that from the movie, even though it was very clear. And while you're at it, you take the man side. This was emblematic with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, and I still to this day get comments on this video, even though I have a pinned comment there saying I'm not going to talk about this until the trial actually happens, because you know what people are bringing forward with all of this misogyny slop is no actual evidence. People are citing nothing that refutes the SH that happened, which is one of the biggest accusations that came forward. All people are doing is more of the smear campaign trying to cast doubt on other people, and it's kind of infuriating seeing people still just lap up all of this slop. It's poorly researched, inflammatory, I wouldn't even call it work, which just dismisses women through misogyny tactics. We are raised in the misogynistic culture and it is baked into us, and it takes work to unlearn it. It takes effort. And when people are consuming videos, you know, whether it's on TikTok or misogyny slop on YouTube or wherever it may be, people are viewing this uncritically a lot of the times and just going off vibes. People that you thought were really good people fall down this path. And what I'm saying is it is easy for this to happen to anybody. Ultimately, this stuff is tabloid fodder, but worse, because it's quick, it's reactionary, it's very emotive, you get swept up in it, and you feel like you're part of some sort of justice movement, but you're not. I mean, if you want to be part of some sort of justice movement, get involved in your local community, get involved in your local politics, go to the town halls, do what you can in your local area, stand up for Palestine. Like, if you want to do that stuff, like, that's where the fire should be coming from, not for these rich celebrities that are just constantly just doing smear campaigns, and it's just exhausting. But what does all of this conveniently do? Women are turning on women, in particular on victims who speak out. If this is how celebrities are treated, how is it going to be when someone comes forward who is not that famous, and then their friends start casting doubt on them? Oh, great, wonderful. Oh, were you drinking? Were you this? Were you that? How many times do I have to go over this sort of stuff? Sorry, it makes me really angry. And we're seeing this happen with a whole new person now, Cassie, who is speaking out against what Diddy allegedly made her do at those parties. I forget what they're called again. But slop work like this is very addictive because it's easy to consume and it's kind of fun. Really, that's what people are having when they're watching this. It's like this schadenfreude, like, ha ha ha, I want to see them get taken down. I would just really encourage you, when you're seeing people come out with this stuff, where are their sources? Are they verifiable? Are they reputable? What's it actually doing when it comes to the case at hand? Is it relevant? You know, be a bit more critical of this. There's so much other fun stuff to watch which isn't misogyny slop.
And, I'm not allowed to say this politically. It could end my career. They're really beautiful people. These are beautiful people. But like everything else, it's a little bit different today. You're not allowed to say that because if you call a woman or a girl beautiful, that's the end of your career. But let's take a chance on it, Mike. Let's take a chance.
Making women's spaces just for women again. This has been a way to get women supporting the cause. Because feminists like myself apparently are saying that you're not allowed to enjoy feminine things. I'm sorry, what? I'm probably one of the most obnoxiously girly people that you've ever met. And the issue, of course, is that feminism and culture as a whole has moved on to, my goodness, think that trans people deserve rights? Yucky! This was how Paula Scanlon went down the right-wing pipeline. Here she is with her mother at the Centre for Conservative Women. She's been on a crusade to save women's sports. Her bio on Instagram says, survivor of the Ivy League indoctrination system. Remember how I talked about anti-intellectualism and that importance with fascism? Absolutely atrociously written article shares. Former University of Pennsylvania swimmer Paula Scanlon never intended to rock the boat. She attended a prestigious university, competed at the Division I level, and landed a job in corporate finance. All that changed when she decided to speak up against biological men in women's sports. As a survivor, Scanlon was not content to allow Leah Thomas, a former D1 men's swimmer, to invade women's locker rooms and take women's trophies. Despite pressure to stay silent, she now uses her platform as an IWF spokesperson to speak the truth. Look how brave she is, this absolute heroine, this girl boss. And once again, framing trans women as invading women's spaces. Joanne, we'll get into you in a little bit. I really want you to take note of her sexual assault being brought up. This happened in a bathroom when she was 16. Not by a trans woman, not by a trans person at all, as I talked about in this video. But this is used as a framing device because you can't go against the victim, you see. Oh, but you could in the last section. It's just you can't in this scenario where it's convenient because it goes along with right-wing messaging. Hey, that's really interesting. But it's using women's fragility to do this, as has happened many times. She anonymously featured in Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman? Despite her remaining anonymous, hostile interactions among team members increased to the point that Scanlon often received messages slandering her as a homophobe, transphobe, and bigot. I believe it is critically important to look after victims of SA, that people have adequate resources, that people are taken seriously. And again, going back to the last section, people hated me saying that then, but they'll probably like me saying that now. Who am I to know what people are going to react to this with? The thing that Paula was scared of was men violating her because she was violated by a man. And that is completely understandable. The issue is, she's projecting this onto someone else who is not a threat to her at all.
I wasn't trying to talk to anyone. I was just at my locker changing and I would hear a male voice and my instincts would kick in and I would say, oh my gosh, somebody's here that's not supposed to be here. And then I would have to jump myself back to reality and say, no, actually, we've invited this male individual to be in our space.
The trans woman who joined was targeted by her, and she used her victimization to further her bigotry rather than seeing her reaction for what it was, a trigger from her trauma. And she should have been getting therapy for that, having support systems around her to be able to deal with the trauma that she did go through. But the people on her team were really quick to cut her off as well, and this is a vital, critical time, I believe personally, when it comes to people showing signs of this. This is where people who are around them should be having these constructive and challenging conversations. And this is where people should be encouraged to go to therapy. But with them being so quick to cut her off, it made her isolated. And as Naomi Klein talks about in one of my absolute favorite books, Doppelganger, this is what drives people to find a new community. Who's actually going to be nice? Who's going to believe them? She is clearly traumatized still. She is not recovered from what she went through, and she's projecting this onto someone else and causing them harm. But who's going to be there for them other than right-wing pundits? And my goodness, was she welcomed with open arms by the right. A pretty, fit, smart girl who wants to keep trans people out of sports, specifically trans women.
That's off of me.
We have another pretty facade for our evil doing.
People ask me all the time, how did this happen? Why didn't you guys stand up? Well, let me tell you a story about the snowflakes that were on my team. One of the seasons I was on the team, these are the hats we were given. People refused to wear them when we had to take it out of the rotations of things we would wear to meets. And why, you ask? Because people said it looked too much like a MAGA hat and it would be embarrassing if we wore them at competition. So yeah, honestly, it doesn't surprise me at all that a group of people that would get triggered by a hat would be dumb enough to allow a man to compete against women. I don't know though, maybe they kind of had a point.
Do you hear yourselves sometimes?
Introducing Bryony Bliss Blend Form, our most innovative.
Do you hear yourselves sometimes? Like when you speak?
Carrying signs of keep women's sports female. And she's been overwhelmed with a lot of hate going her way as she sits next to monstrous bigot Texas Governor Greg Abbott, signing the Save Women's Sports Act bill at Texas Women's University in Denton. It was at the starting point that she became this famous face for bigotry, where it was best to help her understand that her hurt does not mean that she needs to hurt others, especially when they're not a threat to her. Again, this is why I say that we need to have a better support for victims, accessible therapy, and give people time and space and resources to be able to cope with what they went through. Like, what happened to the guy that did assault her? None of that ever gets addressed. We don't know. But that doesn't matter because the entire point is that she's against trans women being in sports now, and that's the main focus. We don't care about that past trauma. That's just something which can help fuel this fire of hatred towards this other marginalized group of people. But it's so easy for that vacuum to get filled by right-wing hustlers who know an opportunity when they see it. Steve Bannon has built a thriving career off this, and women I'm showing in this video have too. When it comes to coping with the amount of hate that she gets, she says on the article, my easiest tell is if any negative comment contains the word transphobic, bigotry, white supremacy, or any of those kinds of words. If that's anywhere in the response, I kind of ignore it because I know there's nothing valid. She explained, those are polarizing words that people just kind of throw about at anyone who disagrees with them. So there's this shield which has been put up against labels. I see this all the time with guys who hate the work that I do anytime that I mention the word patriarchy, and they're like, no, just say that you hate men, and it's like, I don't hate men. I hate white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, as defined by bell hooks. It's like these automatic blinders to criticism. It's not conversational, it's accusatory. I do get calling a spade because the behaviour is that. We need to allow people the space to be wrong and grow and change their minds, to fail and recover, especially because the right pounces on them so quickly and platforms people who falter. They welcome them with open arms, call them brave, they admire them, they show them a good time. They aren't called names. In fact, they're encouraged to continue down this path. Look what a victim they've made out of you. You're being so brave by pushing forward with this. You should take this all the way up to the top. You can make a difference and save others just like you. A great example of this and the shamed woman is Naomi Wolf. Again, Naomi Klein, Doppelganger. You need to read that book if you haven't yet. She was a somewhat respected feminist whose book I refuse to ever read or promote in any of my work because of who they are now and who they've repeatedly been. She made a grave error on a book that she published and was promoting on the BBC, and this happened live on air.
It doesn't mean that he was executed. It was a category that was created in 1823 that allowed judges to abstain from pronouncing a sentence of death on any capital convict whom they considered to be a fit subject for pardon. I don't think any of the executions you've identified here actually happened.
Well, that's a really important thing to investigate.
She was mocked, ridiculed, and shamed into oblivion. From Doppelganger, Wolf's future flipped to the pseudo-populist right was locked in. It was probably that moment live on BBC, getting caught and then getting shamed, getting mocked and getting pulped. A British feminist who knew Wolf from her beauty myth days observed that after the outrageous debacle, there would be no return to the liberal intelligence. So she had to find a new world to fit in where facts don't matter, and that's the world she's gone to. Of course she would become a superstar within it. And who saw an opportunity there other than Steve Bannon, who in his interview with the Financial Times not only said that Trump will run for a third time, also said things like this.
Young men don't have great jobs right now in this country. Young women, my dad was a foreman for the phone company. We had 5 kids that went to Catholic school and a mom who was a homemaker who raised us. That's the country we've got to get back to, and that's the country we can get back to. I didn't say that you had to, come on. I didn't say that the wife had to be the homemaker.
Whoops, he said the quiet part out loud there. Hey, there's still a bit of resistance to, just locking women up at home and forcing them to be mothers whether they want to be or not. And like I'm showing, this all heavily overlaps with the former lefty pipeline. Let's just say that we're not great at giving people space and grace to learn, change, and grow. There's a lot of skepticism. It's like, have you really changed, or were you a bigot all along? I understand lack of trust, because I'm lumping myself in here too, okay? I'm not saying this is everybody else is terrible and I'm a saint, because no. And especially when it comes to women, we are definitely like this. Please refer to my last section on taking women down a peg.
Campaigner and author J.K. Rowling. It took 3 extraordinary, tenacious Scottish women, she said, with an army behind them to get this case heard. And in winning, they've protected the rights of women and girls across the UK.
The bioessentialism pipeline is a really gross, nasty, heinous loser one. Trans-exclusionary radical feminism, or should I say farts, feminism appropriating reactionary transphobes, are a key part of the swing to the right and fascistic support. Being called a TERF is a negative thing these days because it means that you're a transphobe, once again, call a spade a spade. So people prefer to go by the term gender critical or radical feminist, even though this isn't quite radical feminism. We could go on for days about the issues about feminism throughout history. I've already kind of done that here. But the main thing is they're specifically on about a quote feminism which is exclusionary towards trans people, exclusionary towards others. That men are bad, so any man who transitions to be a woman is just doing a trick to take advantage of vulnerable, poor, weak women. And you'll notice that Joanne donated £70,000 to 4 Women's Scotland in order to get this ruling through in the UK. And just like Paula Scanlon, she brings up her own that happened to her in order to justify this. Now, once again, this is where women's weakness is used by the right. Even if she doesn't say that she subscribes to right-wing propaganda or anything like that, she absolutely is being a tool here. The root issue of men's violence towards women is never actually addressed. But these women are given a platform, so then they get to say the hateful stuff as opposed to men saying it. But people keep on saying that it's just creating a space for biological women, that's all. But when you scratch the surface, even just the tiniest bit, you won't actually find them fighting to make sure that women are genuinely safer in the world. They're not fighting to make sure that women are treated equally, paid fairly. You don't see them bringing up femicide or intersectional feminist issues. They don't care about class or ableism or racism. They're probably also swerfs, against sex workers. J.K. Rowling is the absolute epitome of this, as she is trying to be like the Andrew Tate of the womanosphere, smoking on a cigar and getting this heinous stuff put in place in the UK. It makes her like this badass woman. It's not a win for you. It's not a win for women. It's a win for the guys. It's a win for fascism. TERFs are reactionary as opposed to a movement forward. Think about it. What rights are they fighting for?
Need a toolkit? Here's 3 great options from Harbor Freight. The Pittsburgh 130-piece kit is...
What rights are they fighting for? What are they fighting to progress? Nothing. They're just fighting to strip other people of their humanity. Hence me being very comfortable with calling them farts. And there is a future video I'm working on with all of the ways that women are being policed, thanks to all of this nonsense that's happening. Because it's just making the world worse for all of us, except for cis, het, straight, white men. Whilst J.K. Rowling says that she's left of centre with her politics, what she's done is actively excluded a group of people. When it comes to fascism, this is incredibly important. She cannot identify with the left because we are more inclusive and we're fighting for all rights. She is actively fighting against them. And this is how farts work so well with fascism.
When he says that Taylor Swift is no longer hot.
Look, he is speaking about Taylor Swift's political views and how perhaps it has impacted the support of the American public for her work, and I will leave it at that.
Women have furthered right-wing movements historically, and it's continuing on now. It appears like a cloak and dagger, using beautiful imagery, femininity, and fragility to defend themselves, often hearkening on tradition to do so. You can see this with Mormonism, for example. Now, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, I thought originally was going to be sort of like an expose diving into all of the bad stuff that the LDS Church does, a bit like what Alyssa Grenfell's channel does on YouTube if you're not following their work yet. It's more like watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians. No longer Mormon women seem to be these timid recluses because that's literally what they should be in order to be part of the LDS church. No, you've got these hot young women who have got children and they've got some thriving businesses. They say things like, we're taking down the patriarchy, but be so for real right now because being part of the LDS church is kind of like the epitome of the patriarch. And in this second season, we are seeing so much internalized misogyny from the girls going towards each other. They are telling each other what they can do, what they can't do. There is so much slut shaming, and it's incredibly mean-spirited the whole time. You're either good enough to be with us and good for business, or you're out. It's actually been really exhausting to watch because of just how mean they are to each other and just how much trauma is shown on screen.
What does that say about you? I'm not pointing fingers. You guys.
That's what I'm saying. I was trash.
I know. That's what I'm saying that though.
I guess what I'm hearing is you deserve what you got.
The thing is, like, you have me, you have your kids. Do you even want to be part of Mom Talk?
I think being a part of Mom Talk is a huge responsibility for each of us. Because as a group, we're trying to influence the world. And I feel like if no one's...
But what are you guys trying to influence? What are you trying to
We're trying to
show women?
empower women.
But you guys all just shit on each other.
But the edits are so fast, things are done so quickly, and it filled with so much glamorous imagery that you can't quite keep up with just how nasty things really are. And these pressures which are put on these women, not only by the church and by the many rules from the church, but because they are policing each other. And don't take this as me saying that they're all Trump voters, because they may very well not be. It's more that this traditionalism, which is very much a big thing in the Mormon church, this subservience to your husband, these patriarchal teachings, how important and critical that is in order to be a good Mormon. And when I was talking with my patrons, this is another thing which comes up especially amongst conservatives, is conservative women having to vote alongside whoever their husband votes for. Once again, this subservience, this being a good wife, is following his orders. And as we've seen in the US especially, Christianity has been critically important in this shift to the right. So it's just kind of eerie timing how Mormonism has become this cool, hot, popular thing that women especially are very interested in at the same time as we've had this right-wing rise. But they may unknowingly be part of bolstering the right. However, there are definitely women throughout history, and also especially today, who are proudly girl-bossing very close to the sun, even if it ruins life for all of us. Anita Bryant famously waged war against LGBT people and got rightfully pied in the face for it, and I want this to be the memory that you hold of her. In France, Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader, as this Politico piece excellently writes, how Marine Le Pen turned respectable and why you shouldn't be fooled. Her father, Jean-Marie Le Pen, was the leader of the far-right National Front Party, but Marine did a lot of work to make the party less controversial than his version, more establishment. She even kicked him out in 2015 after a public clash over her public moderation and renamed the party to the National Rally in 2018. She'd done a lot of work to make this far-right party respectable, and it worked really well, with the National Rally gaining a lot of seats. However, Marine Le Pen is banned from running in the 2027 presidential race after being found guilty of embezzling European Union funds. However, the damage has been done. She made the party respectable, and it's gotten a worrying amount of popularity now. And we need to watch out, because her protege, Jordan Bardella, fits more into what is wanted, a man in power. Moving over to Italy and to quote Doppelganger, Giorgia Meloni, who became Italy's first female prime minister in October of 2022, and is leader of the Fratelli d'Italia Brothers of Italy, which has deep fascist roots in the country, and early partner in Steve Bannon's international populist project, Meloni threads her speeches with pop culture references and rails against a system that reduces everyone to consumers. She also declared in a supposed rebuke to woke ideology that I am a woman, I am a mother, I am Italian, I am Christian. And she's become something of a darling of the West. She blames trans people, immigrants, secularists, internationalism, and the left for a hollowness at the core of modernity, and while she rails against the big financial speculators, she has no policies to rein them in, only attacks on Italy's meagre unemployment protections. Aaron Wexler was one of the influencers invited to the White House influencer briefing, saying this.
Aaron, Thanks so much, Caroline, both for having us and for granting me the first question here.
Sure.
And I can attest to the deportations in Florida. My Uber drivers finally speak English again, so thank you for that.
She markets herself as just a non-lib girl in a crazy lib world. She said that the patriarchy is good for women, hates women bosses.
Working for a female boss sucks, especially if you're a girl. Everyone always talks about the patriarchy keeping them down. Smash the patriarchy. The patriarchy is the only thing that has ever promoted me.
Now look, I've worked for great women and male bosses, and I've worked alongside some not so great women, but they're actually the ones that hold patriarchal beliefs who haven't been so great. The other ones have been very progressive. But I have to admit, it's been so jarring and disheartening to see like the level of racism and just disgusting cruelty come from someone so young.
People everywhere are recommending GoodRx.
My neighbor showed me the app. It helped me save on my kids' allergy pills.
GoodRx can save
disgusting cruelty come from someone so young. Kristi Noem, not only known as the woman who shot her puppy, but also as Department of Homeland Security Secretary, aka Ice Barbie, she visited the horrifying El Salvador prison in order to use the space as a threat to people who were trying to enter America. She used these poor people as a photo op, and she was reportedly backing a new reality competition show called The American, where immigrants can compete for the honor of fast-tracking their way to US citizenship. However, DHS have come back saying that this is false. Never did I ever think an official government website would have the title Fake News Friday, dispelling this as a pitch idea, not that it will go ahead. Just, maybe test in the waters, see how the public respond to it, hey. I wanted to show you this range of women because it does come down to women, in particular white women, who normalize this evil. They have the pretty face to it, they have the nice facade, they're the ones who gentrify it in a way. But even if they're in a position of influence or power now, that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way, because ultimately where women are wanted is in the subservient role, just like what happened when Steve Bannon had that mask slip earlier. It's just that they are useful tools for now. And there are so many more right-wing young girls who are influencers now who are signing on to this too, and they're spreading this absolute cruelty and wishing their rights away, and relishing in the suffering of others, yet they don't quite realise that this is actually going to be hurting you in the long run. And subscribe for next week because we are going back to trad wives, because there's something else which needs to be dove into which people haven't brought up about this yet. So what do we do from here? Because I'm sure you're saying like, Bryony, can you stop with the depressing news? I know, it's so sad, but I'm first off going to recommend that you watch this Democracy Now! Video with Naomi Klein, because she has spent so much time in the right-wing space. And the future which they are aiming for is a really grim one. It's one of basically constant war, and people being effectively forced to carry out births, as we're grimly seeing happening right now in the US. When it comes to what we can do to try and stop this future from happening is remember that soft girl life, all of that nice, beautiful stuff that we saw earlier, fighting for that. Like, we actually have so much to fight for, whereas what they're fighting for is not really anything for anybody else other than themselves. They are effectively just bunkering down, whereas we have so much nature that we love, we've got friends that we love, we have our communities that we love, and as I keep on saying, it is so important that we are involved in our communities. Because when you see just how much there is to fight for, that's the thing that really keeps you going. Because you know everybody that's going to be affected. It's a lot more personal than seeing statistics on a screen, as sad as it is to say. And you'll also feel so much less alone. When it comes to my possibly delusional hope for the future, I can only hope that some of these young women who are involved in these right-wing spaces now will change their minds. They will see just how screwed up what they've been advocating for actually is, and sadly it will probably only happen once they get hurt themselves by the system. Like I've said for so many years, I believe that everybody can change, learn and grow, and I even hold that hope out for a lot of these women who are currently in this right-wing space. Like, obviously some of these politicians, they're never gonna be changing, but when it comes to the younger influencers, I do hold on to this possibly delusional hope. But the thing that I would want them to do is to put the same amount of energy, if not more so, than what they've put into all of this right-wing stuff, into how they've actually changed their minds, how they've gone on this journey. And the only challenge for us really on the left is to let them do that and let them kind of prove themselves. Because if we're not going to let people change their minds and come on over to our side, then we're just going to keep on losing more and more people to the right. Girls just want to have fun, and the left isn't all that fun. Look, I know that I can be kind of a party pooper. It's been pointed out at workplaces because I'm the one that's saying, oh, we need to be inclusive with this. It's like, oh, it's not really okay to make those racist or sexist jokes. Like, ugh, so annoying. Can't we have fun anymore? It is work to get used to having to include people that are not just you or just people like you, you know? We don't really see very many people on the left leading these really fun, glamorous lifestyles. At least maybe I don't, but I struggle with long COVID, so I can't really have one of those lifestyles. I'm going to be in bed for most of tomorrow because of today. We're often more selling our pitch like this.
Ask yourself, what can I make of my life? What intrinsic good can I do that elevates my humanity?
I don't know what all of that means.
That doesn't sound like fun now, does it? We do like to point out the issues with things and with each other. I'm very much lumping myself in here, okay? And when it comes to selling a movement, it's like, God, is there nothing we can enjoy? Well, yeah, there is stuff that you can enjoy, but we are very good at nitpicking. Like a prime example which comes to mind for me is the Met Gala, which happened recently. Every year now this happens where the comparison is made to just poor people watching the people at the Capitol, and it's like, don't you know that people are starving? Like, there's people that are dying, Kim. But the Met Gala is actually about preserving fashion history, is a charity event for that, and as Abby Cox will tell you, preserving clothing is actually incredibly important to be able to maintain history because you can see how people were living their lives previously. Like, remember how people got all up in arms, myself included, about how Marilyn Monroe's dress got absolutely wrecked when they put it on Kim Kardashian? That was due to Ripley's mishandling, by the way, even though why would they give her a lock of Marilyn's hair? Like, she really is the most merchandised person in the world, isn't she? And I'm saying this as someone who really wanted to get into fashion and sewing, and I do want to get back into sewing. Like, fashion is artwork. Like, just like I think makeup is artwork, but it's also most often associated with women and frivolity, right? It's a big night of glitz and glamour with celebrities and wildly expensive clothing. It's been the target in people hating something. I would be arguing there's much more pertinent events to be pointing out the issues with. Hello, Pixie. I've been working all day. They're like over it now. Hello, Pixie. I've been working all day. They're like over it now. Don't worry, you're prettier than the lamp, okay? Yeah, you want to have a sip? Okay. Oh, you can watch her now. I would personally argue that we need to have more of a yes and approach to things, especially because the theme of the Met Gala this year was finally a really good one. Super fine black tailoring. It honoured the legacy of black dandyism, a cultural and sartorial movement rooted in reclaiming Western fashion as a form of self-expression, resistance, and pride. So even though I was telling myself, like, no, you're not allowed to enjoy all of this stuff, you're not allowed to look at them, like, you need to focus on, like, the real things that are happening, I ultimately wasn't serving any good with that. I should have been sharing some great moments and how this actually ties in with Black history and elevating that and telling those great stories and appreciating the craftsmanship which goes into these outfits. And at the same time, pointing out that this is the time when Israel does its most heinous things because people are distracted by the Met Gala. So it's a yes and. It's like, yes, it's important to celebrate this, and it's being taken advantage of, and the IDF is doing this hideous stuff to the people of Palestine. Two things can be true at once. No revolution is sustainable without rest and rejoice. And I think a lot of us can really get in our heads that we can't really rejoice anything when there's so much badness in the world. But unless we allow that, like, we're not going to have, we're going to be doing this on empty tanks. I personally think that we're going to purity test ourselves into just stopping doing anything. Like, remember Greta Thunberg and how she kept on being criticized for every little thing? Like, people on the right were nitpicking her, people on the left were nitpicking her, to the point where she was no longer allowed to travel via plane to get to places. She had to go via boat, and everything was heavily scrutinized about her. It's like, oh, you care about the environment? What about this? What about this? What about this? And Elliot Sang has done a fantastic video on them, by the way. I really recommend going and watch it. That's going to be linked for you down below. Gosh, there's so many videos for you to check out after this one, you lucky thing. And this happened recently with Bernie Sanders and AOC because they use a private jet to be able to go to these rallies where they're actually getting a decent amount of right-wing support to be able to get some momentum going and help people get impassioned and have some, you know, actual fire behind the left, because the Democrats mostly clearly don't have any of that. It got turned into this whole gotcha moment when it was actually the most efficient way for them to be able to go to as many places as possible to be able to do all of these rallies. You have to meet people where they're at. Do you want the message to be reaching the masses and bring power over to us, or do you want people to be perfect saints? Because we can't get it all. We can keep on pointing fingers at each other, and whilst I do think that it is worthwhile to critique things sometimes, I also want to make sure that we're still celebrating people making positive changes and fighting the good fight. We can use this energy to stand behind progressive politicians and ask them to be doing more because they're elected into those positions. Again, look at the stuff that Legion Miller is doing. Follow the things that she keeps on recommending, especially I know that about 50% of my audience are in the US. Very useful channel to be following. I personally think that this is also a bit of an issue when it comes to people even wanting to change to be a bit more leftist. And it's like, oh, well, if I'm not all of these things, then I can't be over there because, oh, what if I'm doing this or that? And then people will be nasty to me. I just think that we can do a hell of a lot of good if we're building something rather than tearing each other down. Personally. So was it worth me completely draining all of my energy making this recipe? How did it turn out? I think you can tell I kind of screwed it up in a couple of ways. Definitely when it comes to the lemon curd and also when it comes to the meringue. But I'm really keen to hear what you think we could be doing on the left to attract more people over. Like I said, I really do think that the stuff that AOC and Bernie are doing and this rallying energy is really important. So many people have been pointing out that this is a class war. It's not a... Well, people say it's not a gender war, but patriarchy is inherently part of all of this, so I am going to keep on pushing my annoying feminism. And it's going to be a very fun one next week as we dive into trad wives versus gold diggers, because there is so much failure that has happened to all of us thanks to third wave feminism, girl boss feminism nonsense, and you can have it all. And I think that's a big reason why we've seen such an influx to the right. Anyway, I want to say thank you to everybody for making it through this very long video, and an extra special thank you to all of my patrons because they've been heavily involved in this video as they are in all of my videos. And I want to say an extra special thank you to my top tier Trash Panda enablers: Alyssa Pisani, Birgit, Carrie Quake, Danielle, Jam, Jem, Katrine Dunn,